everybody? Mark, aka The Nerdy Punk, back again today for a new video. Hope you all are doing well. Happy April, everybody. It is April 1st of 2024. Absolutely insane to think we are now 3 full months in to 2024, and we are a quarter of the way through the year. That is nuts. The year always flies by fast, but man, this year is flying by super fast. With the ending of a month and the beginning of a new one, of course, it is time to recap everything that I watched in March of 2024. This is the Letterboxd recap for all of the movies that I watched in March. I watched 15 movies in total, which is a pretty solid number for me. And actually, I do have 15 on here. There's only 14 unique movies because I watched one twice. Unless I forgot to write that. Yeah, I did write it down twice. We're good. So I actually watched 14 movies, 15 viewing experiences. Of course, I'll get to that repeat when I get to it. I'm sure many of you could probably guess what it is. Probably the most high-profile movie to be released so far this year. So with that being said, let's get into this list. Starting off on March 1st, I watched Dune from 2021, directed by Denis Villeneuve. This is, of course, Denis Villeneuve's Dune. That released a few years ago, and with Dune Part 2 coming out, I rewatched Dune right before watching Part 2. It was the first time I had watched it since 2022, January, when it came out on 4K, and I actually have the 4K Blu-ray disc. Don't know why I'm not holding this up here. Yeah, a really, really good movie. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on this viewing. I think I originally gave it a 4.5. I took it down just a little bit because this still suffers from the same problems that I had with it the first time. And that's the fact that it just feels like setup. This whole movie is setting up for what happens in the second one. And it's necessary for the story, for sure, but it does feel a little limited in terms of its scope. And I really enjoyed the film. I think it's a fantastic sci-fi epic, but it does feel like setup. It only feels like half of the story because it is. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 on this viewing. This 4K disc is still gorgeous. Can't wait to see Dune Part 2 on 4K when it comes out. And then the next day, opening weekend, I saw Dune Part 2 in the theaters. This, of course, released in 2024, also directed by Denis Villeneuve. What can I say about Dune Part 2? My in-depth thoughts, if you want them, are in the video, the movie review that I did on the channel when this came out. I really loved this. I think it took everything that the first one did well and amplified it. It took this to a whole nother level. Everything about it is better, and the first one was already excellent. It's way more philosophical. It's way more action-packed. The performances are better. There's just so many incredible themes that it explores, everything from environmentalism to war, conflict, messiah complexes, you know, all kinds of stuff, human psychology. It's an incredible sci-fi film. I think it's easily one of the best sci-fi films of the decade, and maybe as we look back upon it, you know, give it some time to breathe, but we might look back upon Dune Part 2 as one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time. So this is an incredible movie. If for some reason you haven't seen it and it's still in a theater near you, run to that theater and watch it. Don't be like me, who did not get to watch the original Dune in theaters. Make sure you watch Dune Part 2 in theaters, because it is worthy. Absolutely worthy. The third movie that I watched in March of 2024 is The Zone of Interest from 2023, directed by Jonathan Glazer. This movie was the final Best Picture nominee that I had to watch before the Oscars, and I really loved the film. I thought it was incredibly artistic. I thought it took a lot of big swings. Most of them hit. I do feel like it suffered some from just Jonathan Glazer's style in general. I think most mainstream audiences will be bored by the film. It's very slow. It takes its time. It's methodical. And that's part of what makes Jonathan Glazer's work so good, at least what I've seen of it. I could say the same thing about Under the Skin. Most modern audiences probably would hate that movie, but I loved it. And I think Jonathan Glazer knows exactly what he's doing, and I think he executed it very well with this film. Initially, I wasn't as big of a fan of it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Still a fantastic rating, still a great movie. But the more I've thought about this movie, I've had it sit with me for almost a month here. and I like it even more. So I'm really impressed with this film. Again, I initially gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Probably not going to rewatch this anytime soon because it's a very deep, depressing movie, but I'm interested to see how I approach it on rewatch when I do finally get to it. The fourth movie that I watched is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, from 2021, directed by Dean Fleischer Camp. And this was also co-written, I believe, with his ex-wife, Jenny Slate, who's a fantastic comedian. And this film, first of all, got the Blu-ray. I don't know why I'm not holding it up. I'm out of practice, guys. This movie is so wholesome and heartwarming. This is like therapy in a box right here. This is a fantastic movie. If you didn't get a chance to watch it when it came out, it's from A24. It's one of these really cool A24 special edition releases. It's a 4K release. These things are really cool. And this movie is really cool. It is just so heartwarming. Like I said, it follows an animated, like stop motion animation shell here that has shoes on, obviously, but it's a sentient, I believe if that's the right word, shell. And this shell just looks at life in such a beautiful way. Like, he's so awe-inspired with everything. He's so just unflinchingly positive. And for someone who's dealt with some depression, this movie it will make you cry. Like, it seems crazy to be just absolutely bawling over a movie with a tiny little shell with googly eyes. But it's that emotional. It's hard-hitting. Like, and it doesn't leave you drained either. Like, yes, it's hard-hitting. It will make you feel things, but it will make you feel really good things. So I really loved this movie. I adored it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I think it's one of the best things to come out in the past 5 years, for sure. Next movie that I watched was my second trip to the theater of March, and that was to see Bob Marley, One Love, released, of course, in 2024. And I actually do not remember the director of this one. My bad. This was, I think it suffered a lot from your traditional biopic problems. It definitely felt like a Wikipedia article at times. There's some elements of Bob Marley's life that, it kind of delved into a little bit, but for the most part, it felt very Wikipedia-esque. And I think that's the biggest problem biopics can run into. Now, it certainly wasn't bad. The music was really good. The performances from Kingsley Ben-Adir, who played Bob Marley, and then also his wife in the film, played by Lashana Lynch, those two performances were out of this world good. Loved those performances, and I really enjoyed the film overall. I can't say I was super impressed with it, but I liked it. I had a good time at the theater. I gave that one a 3 out of 5. The next movie that I watched, see if I can remember to hold up the Blu-ray this time, The Great Dictator from Charlie Chaplin. Fantastic, classic movie. This is from 1940, of course, directed by Charlie Chaplin. And this movie, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, especially if you're Criterion collectors. This is the movie where Chaplin basically makes fun of Hitler. And this was in 1940 when the Holocaust was happening, but it wasn't widespread global news, right? People didn't know outside of Germany that the Holocaust was happening. And of course, Chaplin didn't live in Germany. He knew, though, just like many other people around the world, knew what the signs of fascism were and all kinds of dangerous things that were happening in Germany, right? People knew it was not great to be Jewish in Germany in 1940. And Chaplin, I think, does one of the best takedowns of fascism that I've ever seen in a film. And he also does it with a very odd, darkly comedic package. And I think this movie is hilarious. I think it's important, necessary, especially given recent world events, especially in the United States. I think it's very important now more than ever that people realize what fascism is, what it does, and the evil that it can unleash on a population. So, super important film, still relevant 80 plus years later, and phenomenal performances and comedic writing from Chaplin. Next one that I watched, this is the rewatch. I went back to the theater to see Dune Part 2. Not gonna go into any more details. I really liked the film. Again, my very minor issues with it still remained on the second watch. Basically, my opinion was about the same. I really loved the film. I think it's a fantastic sci-fi movie. Could be up there with the greatest of all time. Next was my fourth, if I can count correctly, trip to the theater of March, and that was to see Love Lies Bleeding, released in 2024, directed by Rose Glass. This film stars Kristen Stewart, and it's an incredible film, a really, really unique, odd film. I went into detail with it in my most recent video on the channel, which was a movie review for this movie. And if you want my detailed thoughts on it, definitely go check out that video. But I really liked this. I thought it was great. It was creative. It was odd. I really loved it. It felt grimy. Nothing more to say, really. I just really, really liked this film. It's definitely unique, something you're not going to see every time you go to the theater. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Next one here I watched on streaming. This is a Netflix original from 2022. This movie is called Hustle. Stars Adam Sandler. I don't know the director. Again, my bad. Yeah, starring Adam Sandler. This is another kind of dramatic Adam Sandler role, although there is a lot of comedy in this movie. This movie revolves around a basketball scout and his efforts to create and help mentor and assist a potential pro basketball player from Spain. And I thought, in terms of the sports movie, genre, this was pretty solid. Nothing super special. It's not gonna top Rocky or anything, but I really liked it. And I like Adam Sandler, especially in drama, and I thought he did a pretty good job with this. That being said, I think if you like basketball, you're really gonna like the movie. If you don't like basketball, it's probably not gonna do much for you. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. Next movie that I watched, I do not have the physical copy of. I watched this one on the Criterion channel, and this is Bicycle Thieves from 1948. Again, I do not remember the director. This is an Italian film. This film is very highly regarded in the Criterion channel, or Criterion collection, my bad. I know many people, especially directors, tend to rate this one very high. It's been on a lot of closet picks over the years, and I finally got around to watching it. I had some free time, sat down with it, and I really loved this film. I was blown away with it. I wasn't sure initially what to think, but it deals with a father who's unemployed. It's post-war Italy. Apparently there was a massive financial disaster after the war in Italy, which kind of makes sense. I don't know why I didn't know that as a history teacher, but I didn't realize quite how bad it was. And the economy's in the toilet, and this guy, he's unemployed, he's trying to make a living, he's desperately trying to provide for his family. They've gotten to the point where they have literally no money left. They have to sell their bed sheets in order to buy a bicycle for him that he needs to perform his new job. And first day of the new job, somebody steals his bicycle. And the whole movie is basically him and his son, who the child actor here delivers one of the best child performances I've ever seen in a movie. He was phenomenal. The father character was also phenomenal. I wish I had the names to reference you, I'm sorry, but I'm sure you guys can look up this movie. But they're basically, the journey of the film is them trying to find this bicycle. And it really kind of shows you what capitalism can do to people, especially unfettered capitalism. So there's a part of the movie where it talks about like welfare and how welfare only makes people lazy. And this is a character in the movie talking about this. And, it really reminds you how important programs like that are and how they can save people's lives. I know from firsthand experience. And without that, right, you have the absolute desperation that people like the character in this film have to suffer with. And it really just, it's a gut-wrenching film, especially in the ending. Like, it's not super duper intense, but the emotions are intense. And you will feel things. If you don't feel anything from watching this movie, I feel very sorry for you. This is a fantastic film. Absolutely highly recommended. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. The 11th movie on my list is Godzilla from 2014. This is the Godzilla starring Bryan Cranston. And of course, there's a new Godzilla Kong movie coming out in theaters this weekend, actually. Haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, but I will be seeing it soon. And I wanted to go back and watch this because I hadn't seen this one before. I'd seen Godzilla vs. Kong, and I really liked it. For what it was, you know. It wasn't anything super duper special, but it was really good in terms of monsters fighting each other, which is exactly what you want from a Godzilla film, these days at least. This one, I felt like tried to be smarter than it was. There were elements of it that I really liked. Of course, the fight scenes with Godzilla and the other monsters were amazing. I really liked those. They were a little dark, but you could see what was going on, at least on the 4K display here. However, I had many problems with the film, story-wise, as you normally do with these Godzilla movies, especially the recent ones. I haven't seen the classics, unfortunately. But there was enough redeeming qualities here. Very disappointed in how they dealt with Bryan Cranston's character. I thought he gave the best performance of the movie, and he's barely in it. Spoilers. He's barely in the movie. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. I think, you know, there's so much that was going well that they really kind of messed up with this one. Next movie that I watched, I had 2 double features here to wrap up the month. My friends and I got together for a double feature of Elvis and Priscilla. So Elvis from 2022, directed by Baz Luhrmann. Really liked the movie when it came out. This may have been the first time I watched it since 2022. I'm pretty sure I rewatched it once before this, but this was the first time in a while, and I gotta say it holds up for the most part. I definitely don't think this was the best movie of 2022. I think I put it on my honorable mentions list, but Austin Butler is phenomenal in this movie. He is just so good. I'm glad that Brendan Fraser won the Best Actor Oscar for that year, but I would not have been disappointed with Austin Butler. He was absolutely deserving as well. He just embodied that role so perfectly. And I'm really happy to see him doing other things outside of Elvis. I was kind of worried he was going to be a one-trick pony, but with Dune Part 2, he was amazing in that too. So I'm really happy for him and to see him kind of branch out. But this performance is amazing. Of course, with Baz Luhrmann, the movie's heavily stylized, but I think it works for the Elvis story. And I really enjoyed the film. 3.5 out of 5. Now, Priscilla was a different story. So Priscilla, we kind of watched them together because it would be a good idea to kind of get those kind of opposite viewpoints of the relationship. Of course, Priscilla Presley's barely in the Elvis movie. She's only in like 10 to 15 minutes of it. So this one, of course, she is the main feature. My issue with Priscilla, it felt very one note. It was just dark, depressing, sad. There were very little like depth to the characters, I feel. It was just telling one story of Elvis being an abusive asshole and Priscilla being a victim. And I feel like neither character really had a whole lot of depth to them. They were not well-rounded, in my opinion. I do not doubt that the things in the movie happened, and I am absolutely appalled by most of the things that happened in the movie. And of course, the relationship between the two is very troubled at best. And especially looking back upon it 50, 60 years later, there's a lot of problems with that relationship. But I also was not impressed with Jacob Elordi's performance at all. Now, it's not fair to compare Jacob Elordi and Austin Butler, even though they came out so like back to back. It's still not fair to compare them because Austin Butler's an Oscar-worthy performance here, and playing Elvis is tough. There's a reason why it was so impressive what Austin Butler did, but Jacob Elordi just was not. I did not feel it at all. He did not come across as Elvis at all to me in the movie. His voice wasn't even that much different than his normal voice. I like Jacob Elordi, but this did not seem like the role for him. So I was pretty disappointed overall in Priscilla. I would have liked it. I wish I would have liked it a lot more and a lot better. but I had to give this one a 2.5 out of 5. Kind of mediocre, in my opinion. The final double feature was a Marilyn Monroe double feature. I had never seen a Marilyn Monroe movie before, so last night I watched Some Like It Hot from 1959, directed by Billy Wilder. And here is the Blu-ray release. Really bad about remembering that today. This is the Criterion. I picked this up a couple sales ago, I think. And I gotta say, I love this movie. I was blown away with this movie. It follows Marilyn Monroe's character, but primarily the two characters played by Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, and I may have got those two mixed up. But they are two musicians, struggling musicians from Chicago, who witness a fictionalized version of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. So this is set way back in 1929. And so they have to go on the run from the mob, and they end up hiding by dressing in drag and performing with an all-female band, the lead singer of which is Marilyn Monroe's character. And then basically they both kind of fall in love with her, and the movie is a dark comedy that, you know, basically deals with both of them trying to get with Marilyn Monroe. So I think this was the perfect one to watch for my first Marilyn Monroe movie. You get a lot of her natural charisma in the role. You get her singing, performing as well in the movie, which she was a phenomenal singer as well. And then you get a lot of the comedy. This movie is so funny, and it has one of the best endings of all time, in my opinion. So if you haven't seen this, definitely check it out. Really loved this one. This was also my second Billy Wilder movie. Really impressed with him as a filmmaker. Absolutely impressed. And then the final movie that I watched in March was Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, rounding out the Marilyn Monroe double feature. This was from 1953, directed by Howard Hawks. I believe I found this one on Hulu, and I was not quite as impressed with it as I was with Some Like It Hot, but I still found this to be a really enjoyable film. Of course, there's so many iconic scenes in the movie that I didn't even realize, I hadn't seen. The famous Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend song. It is a musical, of course, so there's lots of great musical numbers. And it's just a really good classic Hollywood film. To me, there was not as much special about it as there was with Some Like It Hot, but it was still very good. If you're looking for a classic Hollywood vibe, and especially a musical comedy, this is a fantastic option. So I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. All right, gonna wrap up my thoughts there. Quite a bit that I watched this month. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you had a good month watching the movies as well. And I'm looking forward to a great April. See you guys later.